I know people like to hear me, Joe Mullinax, give my takes on fake trades. I've been doing the armchair GM since Damichael was in elementary school. But this is a wonderful opportunity for the wonderful co-host of mine, Damichael Cole, to get in on the trade fun. You don't want to miss that. Plus, we're going to check in on our worry meter and preview a back-to-back busy weekend for the Memphis Grizzlies. You're on Locked On Grizzlies with us. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes. It is the weekend, just about, here on Locked On Grizzlies. Happy Friday to you and yours, if you celebrate, which, of course, is all of us on a wonderful Friday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Shout out to our everydayers, people that check out the show each and every time a new episode drops. We appreciate it on YouTube. We appreciate it wherever you get your podcasts. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe, all those fun things, as we are proud members here on Locked On Grizzlies of the Locked On Podcast Network. Again, your team each and every single day. I am Joe Mullinax, one of the hosts of Locked On Grizzlies, joined by the beloved, the admired, the handsome, the backwards hat wearing Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. He's the Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for that publication. If you don't already check him out, how do you follow the Memphis Grizzlies and not follow Damichael Cole? If there's anything Damichael Cole is good at, it is pissing off Taylor Jenkins and telling him to saddle up, buddy. It's time to it's time to ride. So shout out to Damichael for getting Coach Jenkins to go viral several days ago. Excuse me.
Do you think they knew I asked that question, Joe?
I think the everydayers did. I bet the everydayers did. They're probably on X. They're on social media checking those things out. Sorry if I outed you there, Damichael, but you asked the hard-hitting questions. And Taylor Jenkins, he asked you to saddle up, brother. So that makes me a little bit nervous. Like maybe you'll start a podcast with him and forget all about me. But bearded white guy, I get it. I understand. It would be an easy transition. But anyway, welcome to Locked On Grizzlies. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by the good folks over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Damichael, for those of you that are everydayers, we hinted at the idea that the illustrious Damichael Cole, who usually keeps his toes out of the trade waters, he's ready to dive in head first. I'm very excited. He usually leaves the harebrained schemes to me, but not today, not on this Friday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. It is time to hear how Damichael would fix the Grizzlies. I think I figured it out. I hinted at it on social media. I think I know what name Damichael's about to say. If I recall correctly, you've mentioned it in the past. It's a sneaky under-the-radar pick that would solve some of the problems for the Grizzlies and probably not break the bank in terms of trade value.
Yeah, you solved half the equation, Joe, because that's one of the guys. I got two. I got two guys from the Detroit Pistons that I think really make a lot of sense for the Grizzlies. Now, before I get to those guys, let's kind of give the landscape here. You know me, I gotta kind of build into it. And if you talk about the Pistons, they have a bunch of young talent. Whether it's too many guards with the whole Killian Hayes, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey situation. Hence why I think you should always try to at least draft for need over the whole.
They probably are going to move on from one of those dudes.
Yeah, they have to very soon. And then the front court logjam. James Wiseman, Stewart, Jalen Duren has clearly separated himself amongst those three. But you just extended Stewart recently. You're giving Wiseman a chance over there. So those are where your logjams kind of are. And then you have the young star and the twin, Ozzy Thompson. He's been incredible, right? Like seeing a 6'7" guy rebound like that is amazing. And defensively, he is. I mean, he's probably generational. I don't think that is a hyperbole based on what we've seen from that guy so far. He could probably make an all-defensive team as a rookie.
Generational.
He's good.
I'll admit I have not watched. I do try to watch most of the teams in the NBA. I have not watched the Pistons.
You go look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's stat sheets. You're gonna see that Pistons game. You're gonna be like, huh? But you go watch it. It's that guy. But now let's get to the point. The point is the Pistons are stacked with young talent. They could use a couple more wings. The team has a bunch of young wings out there now. None of them have shown, that they are like future stars by chance, but young wings that are worth taking a shot on. If you put them on a team that, exactly like you said earlier, is not looking to win right now, you can kind of turn it into an opportunity, which leads me to my point. Two guys on the Detroit Pistons stand out to me. I'm going to start out with the one that I think you caught on to, Joe, and people like, and that's Alec Burks. Alex Burks, I think, should be a trade target for the Grizzlies simply for the fact he's a 6'6" guard. He can play on the ball. He can play on the ball. I mean, on and off the ball, like we know the Grizzlies like to do with a lot of their guards. But here's where he separates himself to me. Not only can he shoot the basketball really well, remember talking to people around the Grizzlies, why did they go from DeAnthony Melton to Luke Kennard? Why did they go from Kyle Anderson to Santi Aldama? Shooting right. Is a big emphasis for this team. So getting into the whole conversation about shooting leads me to talk about Alex Burks. So far this season, 6-game sample size, very small, over 15 points per game for the Pistons, shooting 48.8% from the three-point line. You say, 48%, he's not going to maintain that. Well, guess what? He shot over 40% from three-point line the last 3 seasons, the last 3 full seasons. If you go back, even in 2019, 2020, when he played most of that season, with Golden State, he shot 38.5% that year. So for his career, Joe, we're talking about a guy who shot over 38% from three-point range, close to 39%. The Grizzlies could use that, but this is the separator. He has playmaking ability. He can play on the ball. He can play on the ball, off the ball. Really good as a playmaker. Not an amazing defender, but you got Marcus Smart. I'm thinking about closing lineups, right? I'm thinking about someone who can improve this half-court offense. That's a guy that stands out to me. 6'6". Last year of his contract right now, I think he signed a 3-year, $30 million deal. So you're talking about a guy who only costs $10.5 million. And again, he's on the last year of his contract. We know that the Pistons are trying to be bad. So you know what that means to me, Joe? They're pretty much going to trade this guy because it does them nothing to keep him because they're going to be trying to give all those young guards playing times, and he's in the last year. So when they trade him, $10 million, we've already talked about the Grizzlies having a trade exception. The Grizzlies have a trade exception that's worth, I think, around $7 million. $7 million. So you just got to throw in a small contract, and that pretty much any of the young wings, Jake LaRavia, Roddy, even John Conchar, or Zaire Williams, any of them would potentially work if you want to package a pick. And I think, look, most people know I've been high on as much as most, but I think when you talk about a guy that you could potentially trade, only because he has shown potential in spurts, he has shown the potential to be a guy who can, average better numbers in certain situations. And some people may say, he may need a change of scenery or whatever the case may be. He is the guy who I think makes sense. You package him. We'll see what they want for Alex Burks. I think a couple second-round picks should do it since he's on the last year of his contract. But maybe if you want to protect it first, you can get a deal done. And now you get a guy who can add to your half-court offense, who can give you more shooting. Now let me second guy. I won't talk about this guy too long because what's understood doesn't need to be explained right here, Joe Mullinax. The second guy for me is Bojan Bogdanovic. Look, he has not played a game this year. Joe, I'm surprised you didn't catch on to that one. You caught on to my sneaky one, but you didn't catch on to my obvious one. The reason
I didn't is because he's so expensive. It's $20 million contract.
But
so who are you moving on from?
But guess what, Joe? That makes perfect sense for you because you've been talking about moving these expensive centers on the Grizzlies roster for the longest. And I set you up for that. But this is your way to get off of one of those contracts, and you got the trade exception, and it makes perfect sense. So we're looking at the contract here of Bogdanovic. You mentioned it. Yes, it is a little expensive, but here are the main things to work. This season, he's making around $20 million. We know that Steven Adams is around $17 million, I think. I think Luke Kennard is around 14, 15.
About 14,
roughly.
yeah.
Yeah, around that range. And then, the same thing with Brandon Clark, who's at $14.5 million. So again, any of those guys mixed in with your trade exception gets you there easily. With any of those dudes, and I think since it's the Pistons and they're trending in a young direction, you're going to have to throw a pick on top of it, especially if you're talking Bogdanovich. We've heard rumors in the past that they're going to want first-round picks if it comes to him. See, Burks, you might can get away with second-rounders, and the difference is Bogdanovich is not only – he has 2 years left on his deal. The rest of this season, he hasn't played yet. I think he's dealing with like a calf injury or something, but he's supposed to be reevaluated soon. We'll see what happens there. But he has $19 million on a partly guaranteed deal next year, which will probably be guaranteed because he's a really good basketball player. This is a guy who throughout the entirety of his career has just been a lights-out shooter. He's been proven – as a playmaker. You go to a couple years ago when he played with the New York Knicks, right? Averaged close to 5 boards a game, threw in 3 assists a game, even in the situation with the Detroit Pistons last year. He is a guy who's been proven as a shooter. I mean, not the Knicks. I don't know why I said the Knicks. The Jazz, talking about Bogdanovich. Bogdanovich was really sharp with the Jazz. He averaged 21 points a game last year with the Pistons, 21.6 points in 59 games. The year before that with the Jazz, 18 points a game. He has a 20-point season with the Jazz. And the three-point shooting stands out when you talk about him. Career 39.4 three-point shooter and knockdown. He's played alongside of Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, and he's blended in well as a dynamic piece on some of those really good Jazz teams. When they were the 1 seed, this guy was a huge part of it. And you think about how he fits in with the Grizzlies. He can play the 4 in a closing lineup. Think about moving Jaren to the 5 when you get to the last 4 minutes of a game. And you have Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, and John Morant in the game as well. You have a dynamic lineup offensively in that case. He's the guy. Those are the 2 guys I think you attach. You got to go first-round pick to get Bogdanovich. But, Joe, those are 2 guys I'm looking at.
Burks and Bogdanovich, the double B.
I think they both move the needle.
You might have fixed the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, my natural question would be, you just talked about how they have a lot of bigs already on the roster. I don't know how Adams and Clark would fit into that. So
they're just throw-ins for your picks.
Right. I think they would probably be more interested in Kennard, ironically, since he, came from Detroit and went to LA than anything. I liked the Burks one in particular. I like how he's an expiring deal. He's going to be cheaper. I think you can get him for a couple of second rounders and LaRavia. I don't know why they would say no to that. Maybe you have to upgrade it to Zaire Williams. Zaire Williams is a former lottery pick. So if they want Zaire, at least in my opinion, I would go away from anything involving a first, maybe just 1 second rounder.
Right.
But I think that you're onto something with Burks. He makes a lot of sense, and he has a bigger body, certainly not a defensive maestro, but he helps in the half-court offense. He enables them to have some scoring off the bench. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I'm proud of you. That's good trade machining. Good job, buddy. And
there's a lot coming from you.
Yeah. And maybe as part of this positive energy you're exuding after jumping into the trade waters, your worry meter has gone down. As everybody knows, if you tuned in last week, we have a new Friday segment, as long as the Grizzlies are bad, which may be all season. Hopefully not. But as long as the Grizzlies are bad, we're going to have a worry meter on Fridays. We're going to talk about where we're at in terms of our worries when it comes to watching and following these Memphis Grizzlies after, a really bad loss to the Los Angeles Lakers. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, this episode of Locked On Grizzlies is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's the end of the year. The holidays are coming. Do you look forward to the holidays? I know I do. I can't speak for Damichael. I'm assuming he does. Time with family, all that sort of stuff. But maybe you struggle with seasonal blues. Anything that can remind you of somebody who's passed away, someone who's moved on. Maybe you've moved on from a place that you were passionate about. Adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings of sadness and anxiety. And therapy can be a bright spot amid all of the stress and change of the season. Something to look forward to make you feel grounded, and to give you the tools to manage everything that might be going on. If you're thinking of starting therapy, you should give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time with no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is a wonderful piece of fun and ticket purchasing adventure. If you have ever been on the adventure of being late to an event like I have, and you're trying to find last-minute tickets at fair prices, don't get involved with other potential ticket purchasing websites and apps. You need to go through Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry about buying tickets to your next event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for anything that you might be interested in. And whether it's checking out the view from any seat in the venue, whether it is trying to find these tickets as quickly and easily as possible, or whether it's just the idea of being able to have all-in prices up front so that you know that you're getting a great deal without any hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app right now, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem the code. Spell out LOCKEDONNBA with me, LOCKEDONNBA, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Damichael, I don't know about you, but I'm my worry meter is about the same spot it was at last Friday, right? But I'm going to explain it a little bit differently this time. My worrying meter about the Memphis Grizzlies is when I'm out with my children in a public place, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm, let's say I'm at a museum, right? And I'm looking at a giant stuffed woolly mammoth, right? I'm at the Museum of Natural History in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. And I'm looking up at this thing. I'm like, wow, that is one heck of a woolly mammoth. Look at the detail that somebody put on that. And I say, hey, Abigail or Caroline or Mitchell, whichever child I'm referencing in that moment, hey, what do you think of this woolly mammoth? And I look down and holy crap, the stated child is not there. And every parent knows that feeling, like that brief, where's my kid? Right. And you're looking around, you're panicked. And then you realize that they were behind you the entire time, like just trying to mess with you, because kids are smarter than you give them credit for. And they're like, just kidding. Here I am, Dad. And I'm like, you're so funny. I can't wait to, be mad at you later. Just kidding. You're so cute. That's kind of where I'm at with the Memphis Grizzlies. Maybe I'm not going to look upon the Grizzlies roster and say, how can I stay mad? You're so cute. I'm probably still going to be a little madder than that, but a little more mad than that. But I'm still not at a place of overall concern. I do feel that they are in a better place in terms of, okay, they've identified Zaire Williams as a problem. He has the worst net rating of any Grizzlies player by far. No disrespect to Jacob Gilyard. I do think he's taking advantage of his opportunity, but you can substitute almost anybody at this point for Zaire the way that he's been playing, and the team's going to improve. I think Bismack Biyombo checks a lot of the Steven Adams boxes. Obviously, the team's underperforming. That continues at least through this recording. But I do feel about the same. I'm nervous. I'm worried, but it's not something that I'm really going to write home about. The Grizzlies are still only about 3 games out of the play-in, roughly 5 games away from the 6th seed in the Western Conference. That's a couple weeks. That's a winning streak away from being right back into the mix. And that sounds silly to say out loud, Damichael, but the reality is they're not going to be this bad. If they're this bad with John Morant, that's when you sound the alarms.
Yeah, it's funny because you keep giving these examples with your kids, and I keep giving these financial examples. Maybe I don't know if there's an indication of something here.
Because you have money and I don't. I have kids and I don't have money. So there you go.
Well, this will tell a little different, but the situation that comes to my mind is, imagine if you just landed, a nice little decent amount of money, or you just put a nice amount of groceries in your refrigerators.
Nice. I like that.
Whatever the case may be, but you know that something is about to happen soon. Erase all of those assets that you just gained. So that's kind of where I am. I think the refrigerator is kind of restocking a little bit right now. You got your breakfast foods, you got your lunch, you got your dinner. We'll talk about Derrick Rose here in a second, but the refrigerator is starting to restock a little bit. But in a week or so, I just think a lot of those items are going to be going out. Not because of anything like injuries or something like that, but it's just this schedule. Joe, I'm looking ahead.
It's going to get tough.
Sure, we should take it a day at a time, right? That's what they say. And that's why I say right now you're fine, because you get the Spurs coming up next, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But, it's the San Antonio Spurs. They're 3-8, Grizzlies are 2-9. Like, okay, But then you get Boston, second night of back-to-back, arguably the team that's played the best basketball in the Eastern Conference. And then, you get a Rockets team that you brought in the preseason, talent-wise, not too far off from you.
And at least as good as Dylan Brooks has played, that's going to go out the window against the Memphis Grizzlies because he's going to lose his ever-loving mind, and it's going to be right back. He's going to be shooting 4 for 15 before you know it.
I can't wait to preview that one. But
it's going to be a blast.
You get Houston, Dylan, and then you get the Suns and Timberwolves. Like, the week, if you go Sunday to Sunday, the Grizzlies will have Celtics, Rockets, Suns, Timberwolves. Celtics, Rockets, Suns, Timberwolves. I think you win one of those, it's thumbs up. You win 2, you're ecstatic. You win 3, we're going to the playoffs. Like, that's what that stretch says to me. But no matter how far things are trending in the right direction right now, that is just in the back of my mind. What's on the way?
Understandable. And I think that when you look at that, it can be daunting, right? Especially considering the health issues that have befallen this team. And I know you're going to provide a bit of an update on that coming up next in our Grizzlies weekend preview. Because as you alluded to, our first chance to see Victor Wenbanyama. It's going to be wild to see his 7'5" frame next to Jaren Jackson Jr., making him look small, or at least short. And then you have the Celtics, arguably the best team in the NBA, coming in the literal next night. So it's going to be a busy weekend of basketball for the Grizzlies after a shorter work week. We're going to preview that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, I want to make sure that I'm shouting out the Locked On Sports Today YouTube channel, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel for that's part of Locked On Sports. 24/7, the top sports stories of the day, local experts like us on Locked On, plus the national shows covering each and every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. Subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Also, this episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Prize Picks. I enjoy Prize Picks because it's so unique, Damichael, and I know that you agree with that in our conversations about this wonderful, wonderful service. You can combine in a specials league like LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo, 3-pointers made plus receptions. What other service that is like Prize Picks that you can combine sports and leagues like that? Where else do they have a reboot policy where your entries can stay in play even if one of your players gets injured? Like in a football or basketball game, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half, doesn't return in the second, the player's rebooted. That means that you have basically an injury insurance policy. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform that does something along those lines. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that is prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we are previewing a busy weekend for Memphis. Stick with us. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax, joined by my co-host, Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. He's the Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for that publication. I am the Memphis Grizzlies columnist over at Bluff City Media. Check out my work over there. Check out Damichael's work at the Commercial Appeal. And, of course, you can check out both of us here on Locked On Grizzlies. If you're on YouTube, you can literally check us out. I think I'm looking pretty nice today, if I do say so myself.
There you go, Joe.
I like how the headset makes me look like I have like a hovering thing of hair. It's a weird kind of like it's like Homer Simpson at this point, the way that I'm balding, but that's okay. Damichael looks better. If you're on YouTube, you can just focus on him. We are approaching again Saturday, Sunday back to back. Cool to have that on the weekend. You know, you don't always see that, right? The Saturday, Sunday back to back.
Cool for you.
Well, that's true. I don't have a life. You are an active socialite, as we all know. San Antonio Spurs on Saturday night. Sunday night is the Boston Celtics there in Memphis, Tennessee at FedEx Forum. The San Antonio game is in San Antonio. Jayson Tatum, Victor Wenbanyama, all sorts of star power this coming weekend for the Grizzlies. Yeah. I think that the biggest thing, and we talked about this before to Michael, and as the Grizzlies beat writer, you have some information for us here. The biggest thing for Memphis right now is the injury report, right? Marcus Smart didn't finish the most recent game against the Lakers. Same thing with Luke Kennard. Derrick Rose should, in theory, be on the injury return horizon. What are you hearing about the Grizzlies going into a back-to-back basketball weekend?
Joe, are you a good news first person or the bad news first? You tell me which one you want.
I'm a bad news first. We can
Bad
start
first.
with that.
Oh yeah, and on positive vibes. There we go. So the bad right now is Marcus Smart is being reevaluated again. It doesn't say too much. It may not be quote unquote bad. To me, is we don't know yet. The Grizzlies yesterday they didn't practice, on Thursday, but players were in play groups and things like that. So the play groups is when they do their individual work and things like that. Marcus Smart did any of that. He's actually, I was with the Grizzlies players yesterday. They donated 50,000 meals. Like they helped package 50,000 meals together for underserved communities in Memphis.
Kudos.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
It is the season of giving. So the players, the coaches, staff, the organization, all were involved in that. But Marcus Smart was not there. So he was with the doctors. So I think that is a little bit on the concerning side. Now moving more to the positive side. Luke Kennard, who left the first half left game, was there and is listed as day-to-day. So we'll see, what kind of happens there. With these back-to-backs, we know how cautious the Grizzlies are. Not really expecting him to probably play both legs, but I think we could. There's a possibility that we'd see him, in this upcoming stretch. Speaking of back-to-backs and Grizzlies players, Derrick Rose will return during this back-to-back.
What? Good news.
The point guard position is about to get some additional help. We'll see if he plays on the front leg or the second leg. Obviously, Derrick Rose at this point in his career, I wouldn't expect
zero chance he's playing in both games.
He's not playing in both games. So he'll play in one of them. The Grizzlies are still determining, if that's the front leg, that's the back leg. But you can expect Derrick Rose to kind of reconfigure himself into the point guard situation at this point. And now decent clue of who's going to be available for the Celtics game. Personally, most people are more excited for the Celtics game, probably. Me, I'm more excited for the Spurs game, Joe. I want to see the Grizzlies match up against Victor Wenbanyama to the point. I asked Jaren Jackson Jr. a little bit of a goofy question yesterday. I said, have you ever blocked someone as tall as him before? And he had to, he's like, actually, one of my old teammates. And, I was about to say, well, Jared, that's unfair. But, he was talking about one of his old high school teammates. I'm like, come on, you were a Division I prospect. And like, come on, Jared, like, please, like but still, the point is he's blocked someone as tall as Victor Wenbanyama so we'll see what happens, in this game. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be fun to see, how the Grizzlies kind of maneuver around his strengths. We know he has been incredible in the paint. I'm looking forward to that. And, of course, the Celtics game will be fun as well, but be a little bit unfair. You get the defending champs on the second night of a back-to-back for the Grizzlies. Not the defending champ, the Eastern Conference champs.
Right.
But you get them on the second night of a back-to-back. It's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah, and the defending Eastern Conference champions got better, right? The Kristaps Porzingis trade, Drew Holiday being there in Boston now. It's terrifying, right, to be honest with you. The Celtics are a legitimate monster. And I think I'm with you. I'm more interested in the Spurs game because I think the Grizzlies have a better chance to win. Yeah. I'm hopeful, and Memphis always kind of marches to the beat of their own drum. I'm hopeful that they go all in on the Saturday game, like Luke Kennard, if he's able to, plays that game. Derrick Rose plays that game.
And the Spurs will be on the second night of a back-to-back.
Correct. So it'll be a Friday-Saturday back-to-back for San Antonio.
Right.
All of those reasons, to me, that's the one that you go in and say we have to win, or at least put our best foot forward. You come back the next night, do the best you can against Boston. They're the freaking Celtics. It's going to be tough. That's one of those scheduled losses that you look at when the schedule comes out and you're like, that's going to be tough. And you think that, assuming that the team's going to be healthy, which obviously the Memphis Grizzlies are not at this stage. So I'm with you on looking forward to the Spurs game more. I am hopeful the next time that we're on the Locked On Podcast Network waves that we're talking about a 1-1 split. It's going to be tough. I think it's fair to say that and acknowledge that. But the Spurs game, like you said, second out of a back-to-back, San Antonio, probably the only team in the Western Conference that's not actively trying to win. They're not, tanking per se, but they're not crying when they lose games. I do think that it's going to be really interesting to watch that all play out this coming weekend. So hopefully the team gets healthy. Hopefully we have some good news and good vibes to focus on the next time we're together.
Let me add
the
something,
Locked
Joe.
On Podcast Network. Yeah, please.
Let me add this because I want to make sure we talked about Jaren Jackson Jr. a lot this week.
Yes, we sure did.
That game against the Boston Celtics, if the Grizzlies are to win that game, that's the guy who can win it for them. We just got to be honest. It is going to be so hard for Desmond Bane to win that game.
Yeah, Drew Holiday's on another level right now.
Derek White, Jayson Tatum.
Yeah,
that's 3 potential first-team all-defensive caliber defenders.
Yeah,
it's
that's
tough. 3 of them. And they can just take turns going at Desmond Bane. It's going to be tough for him. Jaren Jackson, all of those guys, as talented as they are, they're too small. Porzingis, we've seen him and Jaren have their battles in the past. And Porzingis, as we saw in Dallas, was really good against the Grizzlies. But in the Grizzlies case, they'll have, Bismack Biyombo in the lineup. So I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be a huge key to this weekend. We really need to see him take a step forward after, what was kind of a down week for him.
And I think the Wenbanyama matchup, assuming that's who Jaren spends a lot of time against, is going to be fascinating. Obviously, he's a rookie, still adjusting to the speed of the NBA, but he is a phenomenal talent, and he's really is somebody that you have to get used to. You've heard Kevin Durant talk about that, right? Like KD at 6'11" is not used to being 6 inches taller, shorter than anybody, and especially somebody that has a handle and has guard skills like Wenbanyama does. So I think that seeing how Jaren responds to that is going to be fascinating too. So it's going to be a fun weekend for a variety of different reasons. Hopefully you don't have many plans. I know you don't, partner, because you have to work this weekend. Yeah. But again, as a father of 3, I too have no social life this coming weekend, but that's every weekend for me. And I'll be watching some Grizzlies basketball, and we'll have a lot to discuss the next time we're together on Monday's edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Quick scheduling note, speaking of Locked On Grizzlies, your team each and every day. Damichael and I have done a very good job keeping to that each and every day mantra because we're going to take a couple days off around Thanksgiving. Okay. Damichael's a big family guy. I'm a big family guy. So around the Thanksgiving holiday, it'll be a shorter week for us here. We'll catch up with you down the road, but we'll remind you of that. Just putting that out there. We've been very good this month, each and every day, so we can have a Thanksgiving holiday with our families and friends. So we'll talk more about that later on this week. Just putting that on our everydayers radar here as we close out another fun-filled week at Locked On Grizzlies. For Damichael, I'm Joe. I want to shout out one more time our first ever National Sports 24 streaming channel on YouTube that Locked On has started, Locked On Sports Today. 24/7 top sports stories of the day, the local experts of the Locked On team podcasts like Damichael and I here at Locked On Grizzlies, plus our national shows that cover each and every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today, YouTube, subscribe to the first ever making history National Sports 24/7 streaming channel. For the wonderful Damichael Cole, have a wonderful weekend, partner. I am Joe Mullinax. Stay locked in. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We are so grateful and so thankful going into a Thanksgiving week that you're with us. We'll catch you next time here on Locked On Grizzlies.